Our next speaker is someone I've had the pleasure of knowing for almost about a year and a half. He is, his radio show on iTunes is the #3 radio show on iTunes. Oprah's #1. Don't know who's #2, but he's #3. He has launched 2 multi-million-dollar businesses, which is honestly, he's in the spiritual field, and it's rare for people in the spiritual field to be doing so well in terms of business, because many of them have a scarcity or poverty attitude. Just being honest here. But David Morelli is an exception. Last year, he launched 2 businesses, both of which hit $1 million in their launch. He coaches top personal growth leaders. He has the equivalent of a PhD in the ability to read, see, and heal energy. He's a psychic, a healer, really remarkable man. And he has right now 750,000 people subscribe to his iTunes radio show podcast. Give it up for David Morelli.
All right, welcome. Welcome to what you are about to discover is an emerging revolution on the planet. Woo! It's called the intuition revolution. It's about time, that's right. There's a man you may know, Albert Einstein. He said the only real valuable thing is intuition. I don't know about you, but that's not what I learned in school. I learned the only real valuable thing in school was to learn how to think. How to go from A to B and B to C and C to D. You guys know what I'm talking about? I learned that the only valuable thing was actually logic. And so when I was in school, I learned that intuition was nowhere near as powerful as logic, but it didn't quite sit right. Because as I went in my life, and I think we each have this on some level, there's this innate sense that you know that there's something more than just A to B and B to C and C to D. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah, something more than that. So I was an engineer. You know, that was my background. That's what I was taught. That's what I was taught how to do. I was taught to think. I was a thinker. I was a realist. You know, I was one of those people who, you know, if you couldn't put it down in a mathematical equation, it wasn't real. You know what I mean? That's what we were taught. We were taught that you had to go through something called the scientific method, right? The scientific method teaching you how to think. But what's interesting is that the most respected scientist and the biggest thinker, you could say, said that the only real valuable thing is intuition. So like I said, I was a thinker, I was a realist, meaning I was a skeptic. That's the real word for it. And I was unhappy. I had a problem, which was I couldn't think my way into happiness. I couldn't think my way into fulfillment. I couldn't think my way into the results that I knew that I wanted in my life. I couldn't get there. So I learned intuition. Now, it wasn't like, okay, I have this problem, I don't know how to create fulfillment in my life, and you know, the obvious answer is intuition. I kind of stumbled upon it, you know? And once I did, once I started to understand the power and I started to get results in my life, I went, wait a second. This could be the key that I was looking for, because I wasn't finding the results that I was looking at before. Where I found them was actually using my intuition. And I'm just going to share a few of those results with you just so that you know that I'm not full of shit and thinking that, you know, you ought to believe me just because I'm up on stage. So one of the things in my life that I'm most proud of is following my intuition when it came to creating the relationship that I really wanted. You know, not just settling for what I saw around me and not just settling for something that would sort of do. You know, it's like, that'll do. So I said, okay, intuition. You know, I'm ready. I'm ready to find that person who really matches me, who really meets me, the essence of who I am coming into my greatest expression in the world. Who is that person, intuition? Where do I go? What do I do? And my intuition said, go salsa dancing. No, I don't think you understand. You know, I'm looking for somebody deep, you know? I'm looking for somebody powerful and alive and bright, you know? And go salsa dancing. And, I had done some salsa dancing before that, and I thought, well, everybody who goes salsa dancing, pardon me for all the people who are in the audience who salsa dance, I was like, they're kind of shallow. That's what I thought. That was my judgment. But my intuition was smarter than my judgment. My intuition told me to go salsa dancing. And this is now my wife. Wow! And the amazing part is, as beautiful as she is, radiantly so, in my opinion, it's just the tip of the iceberg of the inner beauty that she has and the magnificence that she brings to my life. So, my intuition was right. Lo and behold, intuition speaks to you. Allow it to. So I thought, okay, well, it works for that. Now, where do I go from here? What do I want to do? Well, I'd like to be able to serve in the world. I'd like to be able to touch people and change their lives. And that's the field that I was doing in a very small office, touching about 20 people, maybe 75 people. I was doing it in a very small space. And I said, okay, intuition, how is it that I can help serve? And Kristen and I created a radio show called Everything is Energy. We started on our couch. We had 500 listeners. I hope we had that many to start off with. That was 2 years ago, actually to the day. And so out of that, we decided, okay, we're gonna have this expression out in the world. And we decided to run our business using our intuition, that we would make every decision along the way using our intuition. This is the podcast rating from iTunes. Oprah at number 1, Marianne Williamson at number 2, and we are number 3. I thought, that's kind of cool. All right, it might work for me in my relationship. It might work for me in iTunes, or with business, right? It might work there. But intuition is one of those things that guides every step. My belief is that your life is made up of all the little decisions that you make. But what drives all of the little decisions that you make? How do you make those decisions? Well, most of us base it off of logic, right? But I'm of the belief that if you use your intuition and say, okay, in this moment, and this is a question that I ask a lot, in this moment, what's the greatest expression of who I am? What is this moment calling for? And sometimes it calls for this, freedom. Freedom is the energy of how is it? Are you going to express yourself in any given moment, or are you going to continue to go from A to B and B to C and C to D? Well, your results often show it. It shows where you make that decision from. So the other picture was, we were walking down the street one day, Kristen and I were, and they opened a gaudy sports car dealership in Boulder. I don't know if you know anything about Boulder, Colorado, but it's a very, sort of conscious place, lots of spiritual people walking around, and purple robes, and just kidding. So I was kind of making fun of it, and I said, well, but I had this intuition, go across the street. And I was like, okay, I'll go across the street. So we go across the street just to look at, in the window of this gaudy sports dealership. Well, as we go across, we start looking at these kind of cars, and this person comes up almost like out of nowhere, and they say, they're all electric, don't you? And I went, really? They make all electric sports cars? I was like, that's the kind of world that actually marries some of the cool things I believe about life. You can have fun, and you can be conscious. You can be environmental. You can be, whatever your belief systems are. You can be aligned and have those kinds of things come together. So this is me on a frozen lake up in Colorado, about to drive one of those electric sports cars. Kind of cool. So intuition, and that one's not mine, but I do have a black one. So intuition can lead you to freedom. It can lead you to fun. It can lead you to all kinds of places that you never thought possible. And honestly, I thought about coming up here and not talking anything about my life or my story. And the reason is, it's possible for every single person, but I didn't want you to think that I was up here totally full of shit, telling you use your intuition and not having anything in my own life that I could back it up with. That I could say, yeah, actually I walked that talk, and here's the benefits of it. Intuition is one of the most powerful skills that you can learn. And when I say skills, it's actually a skill. It is a skill that you can learn. I was an engineer who I would consider one of the most stuck people in the entire world. And using intuition, I started to discover this whole new world. And intuition can also not only benefit you in your life, it can not only benefit the people in your life, your immediate family, but using your intuition, and this is something that's very important to me in my life, in my path, and my purpose on the planet, you can use your intuition to help serve the planet. You can use it to help serve, not save people. I'm not into saving people, I'm into serving. How can I help this person become more fully who they are as the greatest expression of who they are in the world? And so this is me in Africa, not saving anybody, but seeing how can I serve. And what I found out is these people right here, what they need or what they want in life, what they feel the greatest, as we are sitting, this is in Namibia, which is above South Africa, with a Himba tribe, and we were sitting in the circle, and what do they consider to be the greatest expression or that sort of aliveness for them? Well, for them, it's water. They consider water to be God, So how can I, as I'm visiting with these people, it started the wheels turning. Okay, how can I help serve in this instance? And ideas started flashing. And there's a nonprofit that I'm now starting called Awaken World. And Awaken World's mission is to go around and see how from this collective group of people, we can bring out the greatest gifts within the village to be able to create the solution to their needs, using not only logic, but also their intuition. What do they need to bring to the world to have their lives be the greatest lives they've ever experienced and to be able to solve their problems? And are there other ways that I can serve? So you can use your intuition for anything. Is that cool? All right. So, intuition worked for me in money, career, relationships, purpose, parenting, health, serving on the planet. Intuition, from my eyes, is very, very powerful, but don't take my word for it. This is Thomas J. Stanley. He's a PhD. He wrote the book, The Millionaire Mind. And in The Millionaire Mind, they studied 733 millionaires and multimillionaires, right? Think about it. Think about how many people are in this room. Okay? And then double it, triple it, quadruple it, right? That's about how many people he had of this collective. They said, okay, well, we're going to study the behaviors, the habits, and the mindset of these people who are, by social terms, successful, right? They've got money. How did they do it? Because we want to know how they did it, right? Because if it applies to money, here's the deal. If it applies to money, does it also apply to the other areas of your life? Right? Success principles tend to go cross category. So he discovered that the success in their careers was as a result of, and then he did this list. What do you think was at number one? Ideas through intuition was number one. The number one reason for their career success was ideas through intuition. Number two was studying the profitability of a business. Here's what's interesting about that. Ideas through intuition is number one, and the profitability is logic, right? Logic is number two. Intuition is more powerful than logic. And here's what I found out when I was a preschool teacher. I was a preschool teacher for 4 years. After I started to learn about my own intuition, one of my teachers said, hey, you ought to go study with people who really get it. They're about this high or under. Kids, you ought to go study with kids because they're still open. They haven't shut it down yet. And so I said, cool, I'm in. I went into one of the most under-celebrated, professions within, I would say, the world is teaching. So I went into teaching, and I wiped butts. I mean, I was dedicated to finding, So, anyways. So there I am. I'm learning from these kids who are this high or under, and I'm learning from them. They're so open. What I learned was it's natural. It's natural to every single person on the planet. And that's one of the things that most people think is that intuition is somehow a gift, that you're somehow born with it, or there's a lightning bolt that comes down from God and suddenly you have intuition. No, it's natural. Every single kid in that classroom had intuition. Every single kid in that classroom had my jaw drop at any given moment, based on what came out of their mouths. Most of us won't listen. We won't really listen to what's coming out of their mouths, but intuition is innate. It's born in each of us. Okay, fine. Intuition, right? So the slide before that was intuition. Ideas through intuition is number one. Profitability, studying the profitability of a business was number two. So intuition worked for me. It worked for millionaires and multimillionaires. Who else did it work for? Often you have to rely on intuition, says Bill Gates, right? There's a dude who, by most standards, is pretty successful. Do you guys get the theme? So here's the deal. Intuition is the sort of name of the game. But how do you do it? That's where most people get stuck, and that's what I'd like to give you an experience of today. This is what intuition used to look like. Right? That's what we think, We have to stare into a crystal ball and have fake fingernails as we do it, But no. Here's what intuition has recently looked like. And you don't have to stick out your tongue, I swear to you, in order to have intuition. Intuition today, there's a revolution happening, and it's the awakening of each person and their gifts. When I was an engineer, I thought that I didn't have any of those gifts. Those gifts felt like they were asleep or somehow crushed inside me. I didn't even think that they existed. But intuition is one of those things that it doesn't matter how long it's been asleep, it can wake up in any moment. It's there already. It is natural to you. So, what if your intuition was as easy as doing a Google search? Is Google pretty easy to use? Yeah. Right? There's something called the internet, right? The internet is this connection of virtually endless amounts of information, and you're able to go in very simply and type in what you want to know about, and you get results, right? Right? The internet. You guys with me? Okay, just checking. So what if using your intuition was that easy? Would you use it? Really? All right, let's try that again. Would you use your intuition if it was as easy as using the internet, and if it's the number one thing that people find is the cause of their success? Would you use it? All right, now I'm convinced. All right, Google is possible because of the internet, right? This interconnection of all this information. Intuition is possible because of the inner net. The inner connection with you, with all of life. Science and spirituality are now saying the same thing. Literally everything is connected. Literally everything is interwoven. But just like the internet, it used to be that you had to be a frickin' genius in order to know how to work a computer. Do you guys know what I mean? People with pocket protectors, right? People with pens sticking out of them, jabbing themselves in the arteries, right? Those people were, okay. So, the inner net is something that's already built inside you. The inner connection, the inside connection with your answers. So, now, everybody is surfing the internet, right? Very shortly, everyone will be surfing the inner net. This inner connection. Did the internet with computers, did that change the way that we live our lives? You're about to find out in your life very shortly. It's not a very long timeline. Very shortly, this inner net will change the way that we do everything in our lives. When we learn how to use our intuition, that will change literally everything in your life. How you make your decisions, what you decide to do with your life, how your career is expressed, what decisions did you make related to your relationships. You guys with me? Yeah, okay. All right. So the internet gives you access to things like which career is right for you. Wouldn't that be a useful thing to be able to type into Google? Sweet, dude, tell me. All right? It also gives you the answer to how to create vibrant health now. It is easy to find that answer, but we don't know how to use it. Just like when we first stepped up to a computer, it looked like a big old frickin' mystery, right? So, what's your life purpose? I mean, how many people spend so much time trying to figure out what their frickin' life purpose is? When you go inside and learn how to find your answers, you get instant answers, just like Google, just like using the internet, using this inner net. How to create financial freedom now. What do you need? What action do you need to take today in order to have or deepen the intimacy in your relationships, right? This is all available to you once you learn how to use this. So in my business, this inner net, being able to say, okay, what do I need to do in order to serve in the world? How can I create that? In my business, I went from serving 75 people at a time, or 75 people to 750,000 people in only 2 years. The decisions that I made were based on my intuition or this inner net. I did searches, internal searches all the time. Oh, and serving one person at a time to 1,000 people at a time, and when I worked with 1,000 people at a time, getting better results, you know? Being able to coach and guide them through the internal transformation of what it takes to be able to clear their blocks so that the greatest expression of them comes out into the world. That's what I'm about, at least. That's what I like to do. So, you have to do a couple things in order to be able to gain access to this and be able to use it in your life. You have to show up with sincerity. And sincerity means, you know, that you're not trying to make a quick buck and not give anything to the world, right? Showing up with sincerity goes, okay, I'm here. You know, I'm here to serve, and I'm not gonna, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Sincerity? You can get it. All right. Willingness to listen. If you go, anytime you go to listen to your intuition and you already go, I know what it's gonna say, you know, you're not gonna be able to hear. You have to be willing to listen. You have to be open. Another way of saying some of the same things. You have to go in with no expectations. It's another way of saying the same things. You're about to get an experience, and why I'm inviting you to read this list is because when you do it for yourself, I'd like you to have with you the intention of having these things. And you have to have a clear question or intention as you go in. What do you want to know about? Go ahead and take a moment and decide, what do you want to know about in your life? You're about to get access to the inner net. Go ahead and take a moment. What do you want? Close your eyes if you want to. What is it that you want to have access to? And remember, what you're going to learn how to do is do an internal search, but it doesn't mean that this is the last time that you're going to access it. In fact, I hope it's the beginning of a long, beautiful relationship with you and your internet. This exercise is called the inner chamber. And the inner chamber is I'm going to guide you internally into the place in you where you can gain access to your answers. This is one of probably 100 different exercises that I could guide you through today. It's my intention, though, that, by the way, this is the exact same exercise that I used to create, 75 people to 750,000 people. This is the exercise that I did, So if you would, go ahead and, with your permission, I'd like to guide you through it. Is that cool? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so go ahead and close your eyes. Some of you, you may lay down. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that because I don't have a lot of time, but if you would, just go ahead and close your eyes, and we'll do it as best we can together. All right. As best you can, go ahead and bring your awareness from any of the places, you had lunch before and your energy may have been a little bit scattered. Allow yourself to bring your attention present right here, right now, as best you can. Just go ahead and receive 3 deep breaths and imagine you could magnetize all of your attention or the little bits of you that are off scattered doing other things. Just bring them right back into this moment because you're going to want to be present to this process for yourself. Imagine you could just collect up that awareness. You might notice where that awareness is. Sometimes I guide people to bring their awareness into the center of the head. It's one of the places where people can just wake up right in this now. And if you would, go ahead and imagine almost like a tube or a little slip and slide, that you could slide from wherever it is that you are straight into a space, right in the heart space. Like you could go either down this hall or through this tube and arrive at a door. And this doorway is the doorway to the inner chamber. And the inner chamber is for nobody else but you. It's for you to get clear on your answers. This is your space, nobody else's. So what I'd like you to do is look at that door and just notice how it looks before you go in. And go ahead and open this door and walk inside, closing the door behind you. Now, if you would, go ahead and move to the very center of this space, the very center of this inner chamber. You might look around and notice what your surroundings look like, but at the very center, there's almost this connection that you can have with something far greater than yourself. Some people call it spirit or source or God or your higher self. But almost as if you could step right into the center of this space. As you do, notice what it feels like or what your experience of this energy is of you, or this connection with something greater than yourself. And in this inner chamber, I'd like you to ask about that intention that you have. If it's related to relationships, you might say, what do I need to do to create that relationship that I want? Go ahead and ask and find what answers start to emerge. Be open, be willing. What is it that you need to do to create that? Now, just like in Google, sometimes when you get an answer, you have to click on it and go a little bit deeper. And in this case, it might be, well, what does that mean? Whatever answer you got. Sometimes people will get stillness, and that's okay. Sometimes another answer will emerge out of that stillness. Go ahead and keep investigating. Well, what does that mean? And what does that mean? And knowing that this is just a brief introduction to the limitless power of the inner net, go ahead and bring with you any of the answers that you got from this space. Go ahead and take those answers with you as you move to the outside edge of this space right in front of that door. And at the door, go ahead and bring with you that answer, whatever it was, even if you didn't understand it. You started a process forward. Go ahead and bring that answer with you, opening the door, closing the door behind you, and sealing it up so that it's just for you. And then go ahead and bring that answer into your conscious awareness. Receive a deep breath. And when you're ready, you feel free to open your eyes. Now, based on the time that we have, we spent just a little bit of time in there and just almost threw a little pebble in the pond, you know. We just started a little ripple. But that's the space that I go to find my answers as to what do I need to do now. And it's something that I learned how to do. And at first, it didn't always give me the answers that I was thinking that it would. Just like whenever you first went on Google and you did a search, you know, did it come up with exactly what you were looking for? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So now what? I invite you to let this answer simmer. Raise your hand if you got an answer that you understood. Okay, great. That's more than I was expecting, actually. Raise your hand if you got an answer that you didn't understand. Okay? And raise your hand if all you got was stillness. Okay, great. All right, so my invitation is let your answer simmer. Things will start to emerge out of that space. You might journal about that, even if you got stillness. You might start taking action on whatever it is that you got, if you got an action to take. What if you didn't get an answer? For those of you who didn't. Well, like the internet, sometimes you need to click on the result and go a little bit deeper. You know, just because you did that first search page, most people will go, oh, I didn't get an answer, I'm done. You know, well, no, actually, most of the answers that you get are when you go a little bit deeper. You might ask the question a different way. You know, like Einstein said, if he had an hour, 55 minutes of that hour would be focused on crafting the question in order to get the answer to emerge. This is the process, right? Craft a good question. And sometimes you just need to wait. Your connection to the internet may still be on dial-up. All right, so is intuition worth learning? All right, the only real valuable thing is intuition, said Albert Einstein. He didn't say the only real valuable thing is struggle, suffering, confusion, or uncertainty, which is mostly how, whenever we're going through a logical process, that's what we're faced with. He said the only real valuable thing is intuition. And so you don't need to look like this or this. Now you can look like this. Or better yet, the person in the mirror. You.